Hello, the Pioneer viewers. We are here today with a new report where we are analyzing the latest day of the Russia-Ukraine war. In a moment, we will share the developments of the last day of the war with a map. According to the latest reports, the fight between the Ukrainian army and the Russian army continues in 4 parts of the main front line. Ukrainian troops continue offensive operations at many points, especially on the Kherson front line. At some points on the Kherson front line, the Ukrainian army has made gains, albeit limited. The Russian army seems to have caught unprepared here, although they are trying to repel Ukrainian forces. With all their forces, they are quite weak. For the moment, we can clearly see that the Ukrainian army is still in an advantageous position. So what is the latest situation on the front line? Let's take a look at the developments together. As the Pioneer, we continue to convey the Russia-Ukraine war to you. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. You can also support me and my team by using the Super Thanks button under the videos. Let's start if you are ready. The Pioneer reports. We are going to start with the Kherson front line. The activity that started with the attack launched by the Ukrainian Naval Special Forces continue. Ukrainian troops have conducted several operations on the east bank of the Dnieper River. During these operations, very important positions on the east bank of the river were captured by the Ukrainian armed forces. Currently, Ukrainian forces continue to hold their positions in the region. Russian troops are trying to repel Ukrainian forces, especially with long-range firepower. However, there is no result. So far, Ukrainian forces have not been repulsed in the region. Intense clashes are taking place in the direction of Kherson. Russian troops are carrying out an intensive attack here to repel Ukrainian forces. However, there is no result. Ukrainian forces are still holding their positions. To a large extent, we can say that the Ukrainian army has an advantage along the front line. According to the claims of local sources, there is a movement behind the forward front lines of the Russian army. Allegedly, the Russian positions in the rear area are preparing for withdrawal. We can say that the Russian army will gradually move away from the banks of the Dnieper River. However, as we mentioned, this is still a claim. There is no confirmed report on this issue yet. Let's continue by mentioning the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, Russian artillery units targeted Ukrainian positions in Vuhledar and the town itself, Sadovoy and Sakharevka, Lviv, and Kozotskoye, Krasnomayak, Respublika, and Kachiska. Ukrainian artillery units carried out a general offensive targeting all Russian positions along the banks of the Dnieper River. Let us continue by analyzing the latest developments in the Rabudny sector of the Zaporizhzhia front line. As you may recall, reports emerged recently that the Ukrainian army had shifted some units of the Zaporizhzhia front line to the Donetsk front line for defense support. These reports were allegations at the time they appeared. However, these allegations were confirmed because they are positive situations for the Russian army in the Rabudny section of the Zaporizhzhia front line. From this point of view, we can say that some Ukrainian troops have been shifted to the Donetsk front line. According to the latest reports, there are intensive attacks of Russian troops in the Pityakhatsky direction. However, they are not yet able to repel Ukrainian troops. There is still an experienced Ukrainian defense force in the region. This force is currently sufficient to repel the Russian offensive forces. Russian troops have still not made sufficient progress. In the direction of Kopany and Verbov, Ukrainian troops are still trying to advance. According to the latest reports, there is a furious attack by the Ukrainian army in these 2 areas. At some points, Ukrainian troops are making progress, albeit limited. Let's talk about artillery activities in the region. According to the latest reports, Russian artillery units targeted Ukrainian positions in Kamenskoye, Malayatokmakcha, Gulyapil, and Krasnoye and Poltavka. In turn, Ukrainian artillery units targeted positions of the Russian armed forces in the direction of Novoprokopivka, Novopokrovka, Verbov, and Kopany. Let us continue by analyzing the latest developments in the Vuhledar sector of the Zaporizhzhia front line. As you know, there was a relative calm in this region in recent days. This calmness has been broken to a great extent. Both Ukrainian troops and Russian troops carried out intensive mutual attacks. According to the latest reports, the Russian army still insists on Ukraine and Stromayorsk. However, Russian troops are still unable to achieve results. Ukrainian defense forces are quite successfully repelling Russian attacks. On the other hand, Russian troops are attempting a series of attacks on the Ukrainian positions near Vuhledar. As you know, the Ukrainian army tried to advance in the direction of Vuhledar after the Ukraine direction. Although the region was not fully captured, Ukrainian troops approached the borders. The main defense lines of Vuhledar were constantly being hit by Ukrainian artillery. According to the latest reports, the Russian army has launched an offensive to repel Ukrainian troops from this area. However, so far there is no information about the withdrawal of Ukrainian troops. Although some Russian sources insistently claim that Ukrainian troops have withdrawn, they still don't respond to the request for the visual evidence. Therefore, we can say that the Ukrainian troops are still in the vicinity of Vuhledar. Let us continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces hit Ukrainian positions in Vuhledar, Ukraine, Zolotoy-Niva, Prishchivka, and Vuhledar. On the other hand, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted the Russian armed forces in the Priyodny, Zaporizhzhia, Zavodnovodzhania, Estermyelinka, and Nikolovsky. Let us continue by analyzing the latest developments on the Donetsk front line. The Donetsk front line is in the most active points of the Russian-Ukrainian war in the recent days. The Russian army is trying to advance. Ukrainian troops, on the other hand, are making an intense effort to repel the attacks attempts of the Russian troops. We said that Avdiivka would be a new Bakhmut. Intense clashes continue in Avdiivka. According to the latest report, after the shelling, Russian forces launched attacks near Novomykhailovka in Marianka, near Provomoskoy, in the southern approaches to Avdiivka and near Stupnoy. This attempt to advance was actually unexpected for the Ukrainian army. However, they managed to repel these attacks quite successfully. It is very important for the Ukrainian army to be able to recover quickly and mobilize. Let's talk about artillery activity in the region. There is silence in the Ukrainian artillery units. Russian artillery units targeted Ukrainian positions in Krasnokoivka, Poboda, and Gorodnokoivka, Krasnogorovka town and Natoliivka, Tonenkoy and Berdichki, and Karmiivka, Alexandropol, Shukavka, Balka, and New York. What do you think? What strategy do you think Ukrainian troops will follow on the Donetsk front? Will the intensive attacks by the Russian troops continue? How do you assess the advance of the Ukrainian army on the Kherson front line? Let me know in the comments. I read and care about all your comments.